So in our last couple of videos, we downloaded and installed WAMP or MAMP, or localhost or environment server, and now we installed CodeIgniter in our last video and didn't really play with it too much. Now we're going to actually develop a site. Here's a basic site that I set up real quick, and it's just a basic home about contact page, and we're going to build this in CodeIgniter. It's going to be built dynamically, and we're going to do a lot of cool stuff with it. So in our last video, we set up we were just messing with the controller and views page or folders, and we have a welcome controller. Let's open that. I don't want our controller to be called welcome. I want to customize it. So let's go into our config folder, which you'll be in here a lot. You'll be messing with the config.php. You'll be messing with the database later, the autoload, and the routes. Let's click on routes. And down here, we're going to change the default controller to main. Save it, exit out. So now let's change this to main. It's going to be our default main controller. So it has to be capitalized. Take note of that. And this one is lowercase. Main. So now that that's set up, I'm going to delete this stuff that I don't really need, these comments. And this is a public function controller. The public is optional, I believe. You can just have function index and it will still work. I think it does public by default. So our function index is our home page, which is this is our home page. It can also be accessed as like index.php/main. So you can also do that. I think /index might work too. Yes. So this is how the CodeIgniter does URLs by default. In another tutorial in the future, we're going to get rid of this, so it's just main/index. And where this comes from is this is our main controller. Or basically, CodeIgniter gets our index.php, which is our main page, in a root folder. So it's index.php, and then it goes inside of our main controller that we created, and then it gets the index function, which is the home page. You don't really have to list /index, but just so you know. And if you were to make another page, say we call it an about page, you can say /about, and that's another page. But we're going to create, you can also just do this, and that gets the root or the index this by default. So we're going to cut this page up into 3 different views. So we have a header here, this top black area, and then we have our content, our body, and a footer. So let's open up, or let's change these. Let's load 3 views right now, and we're going to create them right now. So we have a header, content, and a footer. We'll save that. Now let's go inside of our views, and we will delete what's there now and create 3 new files. And we're going to have a header.php, and body.php, and a footer. So now let's cut this up into 3 pieces. Let's grab those files. So here is the HTML that runs this page. We're going to divide it up into 3 sections. So here's our header. This is this black bar up here, and I'm just going to grab everything up here. We'll just cut that. We'll go into our header and we'll paste it. So instead of doing this site, you'll be doing your own site so you'll be able to tell where you want to mark up our header content and our footer. So let's go back in here. We have left our body and our footer down here. So let's get our content and let's put it into our body, and we'll save that. And lastly, here we have our footer. I'm just going to close out this file, close out a header, and go into our footer and save it. So now our main controller here is loading our header and our footer content and our footer. Let's just call this maybe body, whatever. Call whatever you want. It just has to match this right here. So our view here, we have header, footer, body, and we're loading 3 views of header, body, footer. So now that's there. Let's refresh this page, and we should get all of our content not styled. And it's not styled because we haven't moved over our CSS folder yet, or images, or JavaScript, or whatever else you have. And we still have to create these 2 pages also. So we have a lot of work to do. Let's go inside of our main CS file, or CI file here, and we're going to create a new file. And in this folder, actually we're going to create a folder called assets. Inside of assets, we're going to put our CSS, images, and JavaScript, or whatever assets you have, into it. So now we can go to our views, our header, and right now we're loading these 2 style sheets, and we just put these in a framework, so the framework has no idea where these are located. They're not linked right anymore. So we're going to load something CodeIgniter has in its user guide. You're going to want to read this and become very familiar with it from their website. Click on the table of contents here, and they have so much things to learn. Classes, helpers, everything. We're going to load a helper. It's a URL helper. Where's that at? URL helper. And what this URL helper is doing, we can actually just copy this line and we'll load that URL helper. And we want these functions in here: site URL, base URL, and the one all the way at the bottom, we're going to use redirect a lot. So read over this, read what they do, whatever. We're going to load that helper that we just did. We can do that 2 ways. In our function class here, our controller, we can copy or paste that text that we just copied up here. So now we're loading URL, so now we have access to all of these functions. I can call site URL, I can call base URL now. You can do that, but then you would have to load it for every function that you create in the future. I don't want to do that, so we're just going to auto load it. So it's just there by default. So let's go to config, our config folder under application, and go to auto load. And down here we're going to, this isn't going to be here for you, but in our auto load helper files we're going to load our URL. So now that that is being auto-loaded, we have access to, we're going to write our first PHP right now. In CodeIgniter, or in Coda, I have a little snippet. I just press PHP tab and it brings that up. But we're going to echo our base URL function, which is right here. And that just gets, it basically just returns localhost/CI. And this is very beneficial. So inside of here, we're in localhost/CI, but now we want to go into inside of assets, inside of CSS, and load these 2. So assets, CSS, main. Assets/CSS, /normalize.css. I'm just going to delete this line and just duplicate this line. The same thing, and we're going to load main. So let's refresh our page here, and here is our site. Now our CSS is loaded, but the framework still doesn't know, CodeIgniter doesn't know where these images are that were just there. We need to use the base URL to relocate them. So let's go to our applications folder under views, and we will go to our body. So these are not linked correctly anymore. I have just an H1 here with an image and a paragraph. H1, image, and a paragraph. So let's find this file, and we're just going to run another PHP block here. We're going to echo our base URL, and don't forget the semicolon right here, and don't forget the echo. Now we're going to go inside of our assets folder, assets/images/7, because that's what I called it inside of this folder. Assets, images, 7. Okay, pretty simple, and we're going to do that for all of these. So PHP echo or base URL assets, and you write the base URL a lot, so I have a code snippet that I can just type base tab, and there we go. I'm just going inside of assets, images, and I forget what I loaded, but I'm just going to say 9. I don't have a 9. Let's do 6. JPEG. So when you refresh, it loads your images. Now, what's next? We have our controller loading 3 views. Maybe we want to make a second page. So if we wanted to do that, we could just simply copy this same function, and we can just do a public function. Let's see here, we have an about page. So let's create an about page. So instead of loading our body, let's load, or maybe this should be called home, which would have made more sense. We're just going to call this home. It's the home page, and now we're going to make our about page. So let's just duplicate one of these files here. Doesn't really matter. Or you can just make a new file, and this is going to be called about. So now we have about.php. Let's open that, and let's put our about page content in it. So I already have some HTML done. Just gonna copy and paste this stuff and put it inside of our about. Save it. Close out our auto load header. So now we have our about page, and I'm going to save that. So now we can go to index.php/main, because we're going into our main controller, and we're going to get about. And here is our page. In that page, we need to relocate our base URL, our image here. So I'm going to do that. Assets, and we're going to grab this. So now we're loading that image, and our about page is done. And of course I throw a hot girl in there to make this tutorial more entertaining and less boring. Maybe in our header here, we want to load, when you click on the logo, let's just edit this nav here. So let's type in our base URL, and you can just do this, and this will grab the base URL, which is just this. So when I click on the logo, it redirects me back to the home page, because that's what I just did. This is the logo, and I brought it back to the index page. So let's do that same thing. Let's do this nav. Don't need those. So I'm just going to have base URL, and I'm going to do the same thing for the about page. And we're going to load the about. It's actually going to be index.php/main/about. And that looks pretty long, but in another tutorial I'll show you how to shorten this so it's just about. But for now, we're going to do it this way. And we'll also do our contact page, even though it's not even built yet. So we're going to go into our main controller and grab the about page, or the contact page that we haven't made, but we will make it. So now these pages should work. Go to the home page, about page. Our URL is index.php/main/about. In the next tutorial we're going to get rid of index.php because it's annoying, and I'll show you how to get rid of it. So then it's just going to be a main and about. And eventually we'll get it down to just about, which is a lot more URL friendly and the better way of doing it. Instead of base URL, you could also just put site URL, I believe, and it will just get rid of this at least. See if that works. Yes. So that's a shorter way of doing it, but still annoying. I think that's about it. Let's do this contact page at least. So we got one more page to throw in. Got my section content here. I'm just going to make a new file for my contact page. Contact.php. And we're going to open that bad boy up. Paste. And now I have my contact page. In another tutorial I'm going to show you how to do a form in CodeIgniter. You're going to want to look over, let's make sure this works first. It does not, because we did not make a new public function. So we're just going to duplicate that. Instead of about, we're going to load the contact and call it contact. Now it works. Okay. Hopefully this all makes sense to you. We're just loading some views. We're going to do a lot more advanced stuff with this controller, putting some logic in, and maybe you want to add a URL title. We'll actually do that real quick. Okay, so now we're going to add some data to we're going to add title, basically. We need to give this page a title, make it more dynamic. So we're going to add a title, or actually a data. We're going to add some data, and it's going to be an array. And we're going to say title. And we're going to set that data array with the title equal to homepage. Now that we have this data array, we can pass that into our view. So we're going to pass data. So now the header view has access to this variable. The home and the footer do not, because I can give it access. I can just say it's comma data, but I'm just going to give it to the header. So now that my index page, which is my home page, or my header, let's go to my header. Now I can write a PHP statement and say echo the title. So I can refresh the page, and my title is in fact homepage. So we can actually do this for each one. I'm just going to copy this line because I'm lazy. Paste, paste. So here we're going to say about page, and we'll say contact us. So when we go to the about page, it just automatically pulls this. We should actually have a semicolon right there, but it's going to echo the title on each one of these pages. So when you refresh, you don't have to refresh, go to the about page, it actually gives us an error because we did not load our data. So let's give this data array to the header. So now each one of these views have access to this title. Now refresh. I got a server error. And that's probably because I don't know why. I forgot my comma right there. So let's save and refresh that. So now it says about page and contact us. So this is one way of passing data to our views. Actually, probably the only way. If you wanted to pass more data, you could have a, I don't know, maybe a header or maybe a description for a meta tag. I don't know why you want to pass header, but I'll say header 1. And now in our header here, we could just, instead of echoing title, we just echo header. It's that simple. Not only can you just do static strings here, but later tutorials will do actual arrays of data from the database, pulling dynamic data, which is a heck of a lot more fun than just this basic static stuff. Another thing you can do is, instead of, if you don't know any PHP, this is pretty useful. Instead of just typing in statically 2012, we can do our PHP statement and echo our date. And inside here we'll do Y for year. So we're going to echo the year. So down here this doesn't change, but it's now dynamic. So when it changes 2013, it says 2013. And if you want to know more about that, I would just Google PHP date. I would get familiar with this PHP if you don't know it at all. All these are different days of the week. You can see the capital Y is just wherever it is on here, but right here it echoes the whole, returns the whole year. In our next tutorial, we're going to get rid of this ugly URL here. We're going to get rid of index.php and maybe even the main part of it too. We'll do some rewrites. So stay tuned.